Welcome to 2016 Presidential Candidate Interviews. Today I am interviewing Jeremy McKeen. He is running as a Democrat. Hello, Mr. McKeen, and welcome to the presidential interview.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
Good. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready and excited.
All right. We'll get the listeners a chance to know you by asking some icebreaker questions first.
Sure.
Describe your family.
Describe my family. Well, I'm a husband and father of three. Both my kids are in elementary school, and I have an almost 1-year-old. So I'm a young father, 36 years old.
Describe your employment, your work experience.
I'm a high school English teacher, and I've worked for the union, and before I was a teacher, I worked at a residential program at an AIDS home, and I've had numerous jobs throughout the year in different positions, and I've got to see all different slices of America and different jobs.
What are your hobbies and interests?
I am a writer. As a hobby and as a profession, I'm an editor for an online magazine, as well as a columnist. Hobbies, I'm a soccer coach. I love chess. What do I do? Well, I take care of my kids mostly. Before that, I was a musician. I played rock and roll for years. And I don't have any spare time, but if I did, I'd probably fill it with reading and more writing and maybe making craft beer or, bourbon or something like that. So one day I'll have time for hobbies, but right now I'm pretty busy.
Okay. Your favorite place to eat out?
My favorite place to eat out? When we have time, we have some favorite local restaurants we go to here in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and other than that, we do a lot of takeout, and every now and then we get a date night. So we have some great local restaurants that we visit.
Favorite fast food joint?
Favorite fast food joint? I do love Wendy's salads. I do love Taco Bell. And other than that, my kids do love Happy Meals every now and then.
Okay. Any junk food you're not allowed to eat in front of the kids? Any favorite junk food?
Sure. I love ice cream. I make sure I save the good stuff for when they go to bed. Some Ben and Jerry's. I love Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, Snickers. I look forward to Halloween, so I get the extra few bags, put them in the freezer. That's always good.
Favorite TV shows and movies?
Favorite TV shows and movies? You're asking a lot here. Right now I'm a huge fan of Gotham. I love Mr. Robot. I'm trying to catch up on The Walking Dead, as well as Fear the Walking Dead. I have a DVR just full of stuff that I try to catch up on here and there. And my wife and I are watching Friday Night Lights, movies, Fight Club, Good Will Hunting, anything by Woody Allen. I'm a huge. I was a theater major in college. I love drama. I love the arts. I love movies. I love film. And I'm a huge film fan. So I'm always looking for the next best thing. I love documentaries. I show a lot of documentaries to my students. That's a huge part of my teaching, as well as teaching writing and reading. So I'm always watching for something good for me, but also educational, something I can share with my students.
Do you have any pets?
Yes. I have a cat named Gatsby, and we've had cats for a few years. I grew up with dogs, and that's been, we've had a few cats, and they've all died over the years, but right now we just have one.
And the final icebreaker question.
Breaking the ice.
Yeah. Name a song that you consider your life anthem, a motto, something that describes who you are.
Well, I'm a lifelong musician, so I have thousands of songs. I don't really have a life anthem. I love the song. Well, I love Bob Dylan, Richie Havens, Evan Dando, Michael Knott, Bill Melanie. There's a song "Follow" by Richie Havens that I love. It's kind of a simple song. I don't really have like one song. I probably have 10 or so that I could put on a mixtape for you. But I don't have that one song. It's a tough question. I'm sure if we took a road trip, I'd have a 22 song mix for you.
Okay.
You get sick of real quick, or not.
Okay, time for the questions that matter. Why are you running for president?
Sure. When I was young, I went to the American Boy Choir School. I actually sang for the Bill Clinton's inauguration in '92, and just had this little dream of running for president one day or running for something. And when I got older, I got this foolish dream of running for president, and it sort of became a thing. And then I'm 36, and it's 2016 next year, and I thought I'll run for president, maybe to get on the ballot, maybe to make some waves to see if I could just put my name out there. And that's kind of the only reason I'm running is just to have a go at it and see if it goes anywhere. I'm not obviously not looking for a huge percent, but I figure 2016 is the year that I always told myself I'd go for it. So if I don't, then I might never do it. So I sort of pushed myself to do it. I applied. I filled out the paperwork, and I made a little Facebook page, and here I am talking to you. And I'm honored that you gave me this interview.
All right. What abilities would you bring to the office of president?
Abilities, the office, for the real work as president, I'm very good at working with people. I'm a good communicator. I have big ideas, very compassionate. I have the ability to see both sides of the issue. I can be very logical and rational. And, like most people who think that they're somehow qualified for the worst job in the world, I think that I could do a good job at it, but it is a dichotomy of having a profession where I do make difficult decisions every day, but to actually be the president of the United States, that is something that nobody ever is actually prepared for until they become it, and then they actually spend their whole time preparing for it every day. And it's sort of, it's kind of, it's sort of like a short story for preparing for life, because none of us are really prepared for life every day. We just sort of, we step into the role and we don't back away from it. But I actually do possess, some leadership skills and good communication skills on a smaller level. I've been a union rep. I've been a union president for a futures program. I've had some leadership roles. Not that I am qualified in terms of being elected senator or congressman in terms of having all that experience, but on a very small scale, I do have actual characteristics, and I'm not just a loony out there running for president. If it were to come down, if all the if all the other nominees dropped out and they're like, "Hey, Jeremy, do you actually want to run for this thing?" Yes, but other than that,
So if somebody asked you, everybody dropped out, and they asked you,
right,
the voices in your head wouldn't be drowning out their voice, right? Is that what you're...
Right. If it was a King Ralph situation, remember that movie with John Goodman? right? If it was that situation, right? If Bernie Sanders is like, look, man, I'm old. Can you just take over this whole thing? I would go for it. I say, yeah, let me try it out. I could do this for 6 weeks, you know. And I think I'd be good at it.
All right. The next question.
Sure.
Are there any presidents you have a very positive opinion of who have aspects of their presidency you would try to emulate?
Sure. I mean, I love teaching juniors American literature. Jefferson, Teddy Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt. I love Obama, Clinton. Parts of Reagan, Jimmy Carter. There are. Every person is a flawed person. Every president is a flawed president. So there are really great parts of almost every president. There are some presidents that it's hard to see, what their redeeming qualities were. And there are some stages in American history where you just think, nothing really happened in these 2 years, and obviously there's a lot of history to be uncovered. Some histories can't be uncovered. So yeah, there's I'm a huge fan of the story. I'm a huge fan of men and women coming into their own as characters. So I came into politics. Actually, I became a Democrat because of Obama. I was an independent before that, and because of Obama and Joe Biden, and because of my involvement with the union, I said, look, I'm going to be a Democrat and pledge myself to be a Democrat. And that was a turning point for me. Before that, I had always been a liberal, and I had different leanings, different ways. So obviously my time and place, being 36 years old and being a teacher and a father and being involved in union, I was inspired to be a Democrat. And then growing up in the 90s and, just in living through the Bush years, I just learned so much on my own that I didn't really have a political education as much as I thought I did growing up. So now, I feel like I always want to know more, but I feel like I am mature enough to look back and be able to identify the things that I admire and the things that I believe in and the things that I side with, whether Republican or Democrat. And it's just funny, when Obama ran, I think I said to one of my friends, I said, that stupid dream of mine running for president, now that Obama's president, I don't have to run anymore because Obama's going to do all the things that I wanted to do. And then, now it's 2015, 2016, and, I said, McKeen the dream, I guess I need to run before I get old, and then regret that I never ran.
Next question. Are there presidents you have a unfavorable opinion of who have aspects of their presidency you would not want to emulate?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a whole list of them. It's funny. There's that show Weeds. There's a scene in that show Weeds on Showtime. There's a scene where the kid is in a debate, and I think they're debating the presidency of George W. Bush. And I forget what they're debating, but the kid says, the only evidence I have to offer is the presidency of George W. Bush. And everyone, they guffaw and lament the fact that this kid just brings up President Bush's name and wins the debate as the worst president ever. And what's interesting is, like, during the Bush presidency, being a liberal, you hated Bush, you hated what was going on, you hated the war and the deception and the money and how all the wrong people were getting power, and now you look back and there were some things that Bush did that weren't so awful. But, living, history is such a funny lens, growing up during Reagan and Clinton and then Bush, there were things Reagan did that were deplorable, and there were things Reagan did that were great, and there were more things that Bush did that were deplorable than great. There were very few things that Bush did that were any good. And then you look at the worst presidents through history, and you look at things that just were awful, from slavery to the slaughter of the Native Americans to selling of the territories, the war on the Mexicans. I mean, you just look through American history and you just think that, how do these men wake up and do these things? How do they allow this to happen? And we've come from a very dark and bloody place, and we just happen to be getting better at interpreting interpreting what the right thing is to do. So there are enough bad examples for me to look at and say, let's never do that again, and let's commit ourselves to the right thing, no matter what.
All right. Next question. Are there any functions of government you'd like to decrease or abolish?
That's a tricky question. Decrease or abolish? Sure. I'd like to. I'd love to decrease defense spending. I'd love to. I'd like to get rid of the fraud. I'd like to get rid of the. A lot of the fraud and the waste. People's faith in government has gone to an all-time low, and a lot of that has to do with the waste of government money, of the citizens' money. Defense spending, it's astronomical how much we've wasted on war in the past 8 to 12 years. Actually, in the past 30, 40 years. Since World War II, we've been at war. I'd like, if, and here in my fantasy presidency, I'd like to totally change things, have 8, 12, 16 years without waging war, totally change things, totally focus on simply making things better for everybody, from the poorest to the middle class to the richest, to really just focusing on the here and now, not focusing on nationalistic lines of whatever it is we're fighting, whatever decade it's been, whether it's the 80s or 90s or now. Defense is huge. The fraud is huge. Medicare fraud, all this wasteful spending that the conservatives complain about. Conservatives banty about the waste and why they think single payer healthcare won't work, and they point to $30, $60 billion fraud by doctors and patients that are gutting the system. Things like that, and what you have to do is you have to govern from the middle, and so you can't have like this extreme view of gutting, like people want to say, I want to gut the IRS and gut this and gut that. But, like defense, you can slowly decrease that over time. The FDA, you can rein that in over time. There are things you can do that over time you can fix the problem. There are millions of people who don't want to fix that problem because they're making too much money off it, and that's another problem that you have to solve. But if I were elected in this fantasy world, I would, love to fix that, and for 4 to 8 years, have that be something we're not worried about. Take a break from worrying about terrorism. Take a break from worrying about war and troops going off and soldiers coming back and all that. And that's something that we've been living with. It's just really this high point of stress that people just need a break from.
All right. Next question is somewhat related. Are there any functions of government that you would like to add to or increase? Are there any departments or functions that do not exist that you think should be created?
What I would like to see, and I'm a high school teacher. I teach high school English. I teach at a vocational technical school. I like to see money poured into schools from pre-K to 12 to college. I would like to see every school become a true neighborhood school, a true community school, a true vocational technical school, so that you take all the academic schools in America and you make them into trade schools. You add to them, and you add all the local colleges and all the businesses get involved. And what we do is we take all the root of this is that we have several Americas, okay? We have an America that has this insane unemployment rate. You have these impoverished areas that have no hope. All their kids are growing up and they're going to jail. You have another America, which is this invisible America of all of these illegal immigrants who are living in the shadows. They're trying not to get caught. They're paying taxes and working double shifts, and they're not allowed to go to college. I want to change that. I want to give every kid, every baby, every mother, and every father a chance at a trade, at a job, at an education, up through college. And I want the whole community to come together to make that happen. I've seen that happen. I work at a school. We have 14 trades. We have local communities and local community businesses involved. We have local colleges involved. We could do it. I mean, there's no reason we couldn't. It would take a while. It would take 4, 8, 12, 16 years. But we have these separate, we have 5 or 6 different Americas going on, and the upper classes are just ignoring, the lower classes. I mean, in mainstream America, we have low unemployment, and everybody thinks it's fine. And you go to the ghettos, and you go to the poor places, and you go to the regular inner cities, and unemployment is so staggeringly high that it's insane, and people can't find jobs. And if they had trades, if they had better educations, that would, education is the only thing that matters. Not just education in the academics, not just education so you can go to college and become a poli-sci major, an English major, chemistry major, but education for a trade, education for a certificate of something to do besides serve coffee, besides, they're not even factory jobs anymore. That would turn things around. I feel like if we said, look, if we put a 16th of the money that we put into defense, if we put that money into education, and we really cared about that, and we made that a priority, things would turn around. If we train people to be nurses, we train them to have trades, to be plumbers, carpenters, computers, technicians, web designers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we could turn everything around, I don't know what that would mean in terms of adding a department, but I feel like that would be the one thing. If I was traveling across America and I was, if I was stumping on every porch and every block and whatnot, I would just be preaching education. I'd be preaching trade schools. I'd be preaching that we can lift everybody out of poverty simply by teaching them the right things. And by, you start with the parents and you teach them, and you open the high schools at night and you hire teachers to teach at night. And eventually you fix it. Eventually you come together. Otherwise, we're just ignoring problems that are always there.
Okay, next question. Describe your stance on taxation and taxes.
My stance on taxation and taxes, sometimes money fixes things and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you need to raise taxes and sometimes you don't. I'm often just kind of bewildered by the the Norquist pledge to not raise taxes, and then have Republicans get into office and they end up raising taxes. I'm baffled that it's usually the Democratic presidents who balance a budget, and then you hear from Republicans about how they are the ones who, just tax and spend. I mean, I'm in Massachusetts, so, all you ever hear is this tax and spend, Taxachusetts phraseology. And taxes can be wonderful. I mean, taxes pay for wonderful things that make society happen. Grants are wonderful. Free lunch is wonderful. Helping people out of poverty is wonderful. On the other side, you have to be smart. You have to realize when you have 4 or 5 generations that just live on welfare, or they just live on some sort of housing stipend, and that's something that is so endemic in the system that it has to be addressed. That is such a divisive issue that I feel like it needs to have an open, honest discussion, and not just two sides fighting each other. And taxes provide wonderful things. I mean, I'm a city employee, and my whole life has been. I've been a public servant for my whole professional adult life. Before that, I was a servant of. I had multiple jobs, and one of them was dealing with people who were dying and people who were in basically hospice, and that was a private grant. And if it wasn't for those services, I wouldn't have a job, and if it wasn't for those services, people wouldn't have the things that they needed. So, for me, I have to trust that we have to be efficient, we have to be smart about our money, and that having these stoic phrases about taxes is not the way to approach it. We have to be, we have to come together. I mean, some things, sometimes you raise taxes, sometimes you lower taxes, In some states it works, some states you have high property taxes and you have zero sales tax, and some states you don't. It's different for every state. That's why we have the 10th Amendment, and that's just how it is, So I feel like I feel like taxes, that it's a misnomer when you look at it in a very heated philosophical way. But I am, I'm open to all brilliant ideas as President of the United States.
All right. Describe your position, your stance, your approach to the abortion pro-choice issue.
The worst thing in the world is to be an unwanted child. Some of my closest family members are adopted. Some of my closest friends are adopted. I am pro-choice down the line. Like most pro-choice people and most pro-life people, I hate the idea of abortion. As a father myself, I have 3 children. I know what it's like to lose children. I know what it's like to, I grew up with foster brothers and sisters. I know kind of all sides of the issue, and what I think the debate should be about is how to create a society where we don't have unwanted children, not how we should punish each other for abortion. The people who scream at each other about the people who scream about abortion, when it comes down to their child having a baby at a young age, they often turn to pro-choice very quickly, but then when they prescribe it for society, they think that it's a cure-all, or they think it's a huge answer. Abortion should be safe, rare, and legal. And if we had a society that was working well, if we had low disease and low poverty, and we had a society that was affluent, then we would have a very low need for abortion. There wouldn't be tons of people, but the same people that scream about the free market and they scream against pro-choice, they scream against birth control. Number one, that's foolish. But number two, if they scream against abortion, abortion wouldn't exist if people didn't want it. And not that it should exist because people want it, but it's a real need, and not just for the percentage of people who need it for medical reasons or because of rape or incest, but because there are so many children out there that are not wanted, that are abused and denied by their parents, and so it's an impossible issue. But I would never, I don't know. It's one of those issues that is it's just impossible. And even though I'm pro-choice, I am very empathetic, and compassionate towards those that are pro-life, and I understand what they're saying, and I totally get it. As a legal issue, as a political issue, I feel like it's bandied about like it's something that's not, and there's so much more to the issue than just abortion. And the whole Planned Parenthood thing, it's ridiculous that Republicans want to shut down government over that. Planned Parenthood does amazing work, the things they screen for and the services they provide. Planned Parenthood is providing services in southern states that are anti-choice and that are pro-life to people that need it, to people that are denied health care coverage in very conservative and Christian universities and different businesses that deny birth control. And, it's like we live in this weird America that denies basic things that we need. And it's like people are afraid to even talk about it because of all this myth and mystery. And if we just had an open conversation and said, look, if we're going to be this huge family, we got to talk about these issues. And this is one of those issues that we should just talk about. We should just hash it out and get it out there. And that should be, that should be the start of it. It won't be the end of it, but it'll be the start of it.
Next question, not related to the previous one.
How am I doing so far, by the way?
What's that? Oh, you're doing fine.
Yeah?
No problem. What role should our military play in the world?
Our military play in the world. Hands off, number one. Number two, let's stop bombing people and killing children and women. And if we have the most powerful military in the world and we're just going to call it a humanitarian effort, then let's just have a humanitarian service that goes out and does humanitarian things. We call it so many different things. The soldier is the most worshipped thing in America aside from the football player, and or a movie star. We need to change this. We have had the military-industrial complex since we were supposed to be aware of the military-industrial complex. It's as if that line, it's as if President Eisenhower said, beware the military-industrial complex. And everybody said, hey, that's a great idea to ignore. Let's pursue the military-industrial complex. Let's do this for the next 80, 90 years. And, and now it's advanced to the point with, we have, President Obama, who I love, Nobel Peace Prize, is ordering drones to kill people, in Pakistan and in the Middle East. It's so ridiculous, what are we doing? We've gone from being an isolationist country to being a country that just, we have, I forget what it is. We have 173 countries with troops in it, and there are only 192 countries or so in the world, something like that. It's so mind-boggling. If we withdrew those troops, if we use, it's just, it's become so ingrained that it's part of our fabric, and to even question it, growing up in not growing up, but living through the past 15 years in America, it has been such a mind-bending maze of how to think about the military and how to separate troops from government and how to separate government from the people running the government, that if we decrease the defense budget, if we focus on diplomacy, if we focus on education, if we focused on business and sharing resources, we could have a world that was more efficient and more peaceful than anything, and we'd save money, and we wouldn't have death, and we wouldn't have terrorism, and we wouldn't have millions of refugees, and it would be a brighter day. And for whatever reason, people don't want that. And so, America should be leading the world in peace, and I know that's what they want people to think, but, we just continue to get caught up in every skirmish, no matter what. We don't have to have the strongest military. We don't have to have the biggest stick. We don't have to have the biggest missiles and aircraft carriers. This isn't an episode of G.I. Joe. So, that is, I'm a pacifist. I am, anti-war. I'm low defense. If we're going to have a Department of Defense, then we should have a Department of Defense. If missiles are coming, we have the technology to shoot it down. If the bad guys are coming, we have the technology to find them and isolate them and detain them. But if we're going to just, blow up countries from here on out just to root out the bad guys, all the relatives are going to pick up guns. I would do the same thing. And a lot of people my age did do the same thing. I mean, think about 9/11. After 9/11, how many guys my age said, look, I want to go kill the bad guys? Well, you do that to other countries for long enough, their sons and their cousins and brothers and sisters, they want to pick up guns too. And after a while, the whole gun thing is tired. The whole missile thing is tired, and it never ends, the bloodshed never ends. And so we need to end it. We need to say, let's take a break. Let's take a break from killing each other. Let's care for our children. Let's have a peaceful world for like 8, 12, 16 years. And let's get together and share resources and make each other better and share cultures and not just live in the fear and the threat of harm and fear and violence.
How would you handle the immigration and border security situation?
I would, and I've been working with immigrants for years now. Where I teach is a city that is a port city. So I've had the pleasure of getting to know and working with immigrants and children of immigrants. I mean, first of all, we need complete amnesty for all immigrants in America, all illegal immigrants. We need to make it an easy process. We need to have easy work visas. We need to, provide a path for citizenship that's easy, gets them in, provides safe harbor from them. These are not illegal immigrants like, they're just walking on the street and they decided to go to America. These are refugees from war-torn countries. These are refugees from the worst places, gang violence, mafia-run countries. These are children. They come here, they have to live in the shadows, they have to work for nothing. They're abused, they are looked down upon, and then they can't even go to college. I have students who have lived here since they were babies, and they can't even go to college because they happen to be illegal immigrants. You and I would do the same thing for our children, no matter what time period, what country. I would hop a fence, I would cross a border, I would commit a crime to save my children. I would give my children anything they want. And so, so right now we have, between 12 and 20 million illegal immigrants. Give them all amnesty. Give them all, temporary Social Security numbers or permanent Social Security numbers. Get the bad guys, put them in jail. Get the violent offenders, separate them, make them part of the country. Give them driver's license. You've got car insurance, you've got house insurance. They deserve a chance at life. I mean, there's nothing. America has only something to gain from this. America will do better for this. You'll see everything improve. I mean, we have. Well, there's a debate if we have enough room, but eventually things can only get better. I mean, America is such a unique country in terms of identity that we have nothing to lose. I mean, if the foolish, the insipid, the brainless, empty idea of deporting millions of people, of building a fence, all this hogwash, I mean, it's so aggravating. We have to, we're not going to fix Mexico. Mexico has to fix Mexico. Guatemala has to fix Guatemala. Honduras has to fix Honduras. All these countries have to fix themselves. Maybe we can help them. But look, we're getting children. We're getting women. We're getting, men who just want a better life. Let's give them a better life. Let's let them be American. Let them, go to school and pay taxes and have access to hospitals. Why not? What do we have to lose? What are we losing by allowing people, and from anywhere, not just, this isn't just a Mexican conversation. And on the other side of it, it's very expensive. I have students who are in poverty because they have to pay lawyers thousands of dollars just to become citizens. And they have, how's a 14-year-old kid going to pay a lawyer $10,000? And their mother's working a double shift and she's got a baby on the way. It makes no sense. It's punitive, doesn't make sense, and I think we could handle it. I think there's so many things we've already done that we could definitely handle a process of amnesty, of complete amnesty, of wise amnesty, of logical, clear-headed amnesty, and we can make it work.
Next question. How do you perceive the issues of race and discrimination in our country? Do you think we still face challenges?
Oh, yeah. I mean, seriously. I mean, we have, I said before, we have several Americas, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, just look at the last year. We have, we have years to go. We have, you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, they're right. Like, we have marginalized Black lives since slavery, since emancipation, since restoration. We have marginalized Black lives since the Civil Rights movement. And as far as we think we've come, we haven't, and I was talking about education earlier. All the achievement gaps, the income gaps, it doesn't fall on the Asians. It doesn't fall on the Native Americans, even though the Native Americans do have a population that is impoverished. It falls on the African American population. If you look at the prison population, it's mostly African American. We need to look at that. We need to fix that. We can fix that. We should fix that. We've marginalized African Americans since the low-income housing, of the 30s and 40s and 50s. We have this awful disparity of this ethnicity-based fear and division in America, and it's blowing up in our face, and it keeps blowing up in our face, and we keep brushing it off, and so it needs to be solved. It needs to be dealt with. It needs to stop being ignored. And I have no idea. I have no idea what to suggest, because everything's been suggested. Every movement is happening. Every movie has come out. Every book has come out. Every preacher has preached about this. Every politician has had a town hall meeting about this. So, let's pretend I'm president of the United States. I can have town hall meetings every week, and you still have half the country that hates blacks, or comes from states that thinks that even though they're in poverty, that somehow they are biologically or biblically better than African Americans. It's so ingrained. It's it's going to take another 50, 60 years before we have complete acceptance of these issues. And I'm already there. Millions of people are already there. But half the country's not there, so we have a long way to go, and we have a huge discussion about ethnicity. I don't like the word race because we're all the human race. We're the same species. I use ethnicity, and everybody uses race, but we have such a far way to go when we talk about this, and it's in, I teach slave narratives. I teach, early American literature. It's insane, how we got our start as a country and where we've come from. We've come so far that just, as far as we've come, we have that much far to go. And so, my wish is just to keep going harder and stronger. And I have no remedy except for love and compassion and acceptance. But even love and compassion and acceptance are tired memes, for people that haven't accepted those. So it's going to take time, and it's going to take time. I wish I had an easier answer for you.
Okay. Next question. What role should the federal government play in health care? I'm a big fan of single-payer health care. I wish that was the law of the land. It works in Europe. It works in Canada. I think America could easily make a more market-friendly version of it, or they can improve on it. Ideas are ideas. Obamacare is a great first start. Obamacare works because it's a transitional period. So I would love to see single-payer health care. I'd love to see government health care. I'd love to see it be efficient. I'd love to see all the fraud out of Medicare. I'd love to see, everybody taken care of and full coverage. And it is, it's doable, but again, there's so much fighting, there's so much, gridlock in terms of Congress coming together. I have no, I admire Obama for pushing it through. I live in Massachusetts. Obamacare was Romney care, right? Mitt Romney is a moderate Republican. He comes up with Romney care. We passed it in Massachusetts. We have universal health care here in Massachusetts. You get a fee if you don't have health care. It's about $217 if you don't have health care. Think of the cost otherwise. And, the thing is, less than half of America already has single-payer health care because they can't afford health care. So they get state-sponsored health care, or they get Medicare, Medicaid. Congress has health care. They have government-sponsored health care. The military has government-sponsored health care. 2 million prisoners have state-sponsored health care. So all of the genius lawyers who are in Congress and all the genius lobbyists who could easily figure this out somehow don't want government-sponsored health care for whatever reason. Not that they can't make money off it. So what's the holdup? I don't know. But eventually I would like to see a simple plan that saves people money and covers everybody. And I would like to see every child, including mine, provided for fairly without
an undue burden to the parents. And, I pay $500-600 a week for my health care, and I'm lucky to be in a unionized job that pays for the rest of it. Health care is expensive. So whatever people are going to, I think Obamacare is a great first step, and I hope that leads to a single payer in the future. But until then, there's a lot to work on.
All right, next question. What priority would you give repair of infrastructure? What role should the federal government have in maintaining infrastructure? Talking about roads, bridges, power grid.
Yeah,
all that
sure. Traffic's a huge one. I mean, in terms of road repair, car repair, traffic, wasted time, gas prices. I mean, we have low gas prices now, and that doesn't really mean anything in terms of the price of oil in the future. But traffic's a huge one. Plumbing's a huge one. A lot of our infrastructure is outdated by 60 years. Wi-Fi, getting Wi-Fi to every city. It's not top of my list, but I think that in terms of history, in terms of being culturally sound and with the times, I think that we need to get every city up to date and on the same page. I bet you $1 billion that the south side of Chicago is not going to get Wi-Fi the same week that, downtown Manhattan is. But I would like to see a unified America in terms of efficiency. There's no need for traffic. There's no need for all this wear and tear in your car. It's not some great conspiracy by, auto shops against your car. Maybe it is. I don't think so. But I think that, that we need to fix the basics. And we need to become more efficient. I'd like to see things like solar panels and windmills and using the oceans and the tides in terms of generating electricity and things that can get us off of oil and coal. I like to see those be part of our infrastructure. Solar-powered walkways and solar-powered highways. We could, if we had a 50-year project or a 30-year project, we could get America totally self-sufficient and off of oil. That could be a reality. When we put a man on the moon, I mean, we have so many innovations that to say that we can't do those kind of things is foolish. Yet we have so many poor places in America that are crumbling, and to look at these places and say that we can't help them is foolish. So we need to address those places, and we need to start with the oldest of infrastructural places and go from there.
All right. Some people think there's a conflict between gathering intelligence to fight terror and upholding personal liberties, the right to privacy. What do you think is the proper balance? Do you think there is a conflict? Where do you stand on these types of things?
We're being recorded right now by the NSA, if you want to believe certain people. I've heard that. What's that?
We can read it in the Constitution.
Well, I wish the Constitution was duly upheld in those, in terms of the NSA not recording every single thing that everybody's doing. I think that you don't need to do that. I think that that proper warrants and proper searches for the right kind of information, that if you work within the law, you can do that. Years ago, I actually spoke before my city council for years against the Patriot Act, against these kind of searches, and through the years, it seems like the politicians just don't care. They push the Patriot Act and harsher measures and versions of the Patriot Act until the point that not only is the NSA recording what you're doing, but then they're selling it, and then all the social media you're using is selling all of your data. So I think that people need their Well, I think that people need their privacy. People need to trust that their information is not being sold, and people also need to be aware what they're agreeing to, and not be taken advantage of. And our government needs to respect individuals. The threat of terrorism, I mean, we spent how many years in the Cold War and nothing happened. That Russia was a toothless cow. And we're doing the same thing with Al-Qaeda and with every threat that we have, where we just scare the people into thinking that it's okay to tap your grandmother because we think that somehow Al-Qaeda's on the phone next door. So I'm very skeptical that we need to take every conversation, and especially in terms of saving those conversations for later. There's probably some 14-year-old that could develop an app to listen for certain words. I'm sure that already exists. But, there's a way. There are enough lawyers and there are enough smart, brilliant people that could easily invent a way to not invade the privacy of millions of America and not waste the broadband and the I don't know, the tape on recording every conversation. So I'm kind of a fan of not giving up liberty to feel safe. And on the other hand, I recognize that it is pertinent to be safe from terrorism and from mafia activity, which is where it all stems from. So that's a big one, and I feel like it's bigger than any opinion I have, because I feel like there are already powers at work that don't really care about the Constitution. They should, obviously. Hopefully lawyers will pick up on this, and it'll be a big news story in a year or two. I mean, it's already a big news story. It's already been done, but yet it continues to be done. So I do feel a bit helpless about that, and I feel like having an opinion about it doesn't mean much, And I'm kind of, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Pinterest, I'm on all these things, and I willingly give my things as public information. So I'm also part of the problem that I'm willingly giving my public information. And not that I'm part of the problem, because I'm not doing anything violent, I'm not doing anything anti-American, I'm not doing anything that would hurt anybody. But but I'm also out there. I'm freely getting my information. So I don't have the exact prescription for you, but I am interested in this topic.
All right, next question is kind of a sensitive topic, but it matters to a lot of voters.
Sure.
What role does faith, religion, spirituality, etc. play in your life, and what type of role would it play for you as president? This isn't a litmus test or anything. It's just one of those things that's important to a lot of voters.
Sure, yeah. I mean, faith and religion are extremely important to millions of people. For me, religion is not a factor. I don't have a faith. I don't believe in religion or myths. It's not something that I share in my life. I'm a humanist. I care deeply for all people. Love and compassion and kindness and gentleness are things that guide my daily life. Nonviolence is a huge, important characteristic for me. I was raised in a very religious household, and as as president, I respect people's opinions, but I also I am guided by different opinions and beliefs, and I see that there's a huge disconnect between the popular religious opinion in America and the course that America should go in terms of in the way it treats people. And so that is a huge detriment to me as a candidate. I feel like if I were running in all 50 states, if people got to know me, if I was in debates, if I was, a real popular icon, in the fantasy world, people would say, you know what, I like this guy enough. It doesn't matter that he doesn't go to church. It doesn't matter that he's not religious. And it kind of makes sense. And I feel like most people, if they were pressed, would not be as religious or as much as a believer as they say they are. And I feel like it's very important in America. It's very important to a lot of people. And we're still, it's funny, we're still fighting this debate between rationalism and Puritanism in America. Our founding fathers and mothers were Puritans, and then the other half of them were rationalists. And the Puritans believed that they were the pure ones and that they were the only ones who knew the truth. And the rationalist ones believed that there was truth in every religion and everywhere. And we're still having that debate as much as we know about science and technology and history and math and English and language and everything. And you watch the chest thumping, and you watch this confidence and this false modesty and this bravado that's put on by these people who don't emulate any of the love or compassion that the religion and the faith that they espouse actually teaches. And it just cinches it for me. But then I think of the theater that's involved for these millions of Americans who are just constantly fooled by it. And so, so I'm not religious. I don't have a faith. I don't even like the word spiritual. I think it's a misnomer. I think it's kind of a false opinion. But I do, I know that it has a place in people's lives, and it does give a great comfort, and that's a wonderful thing. But as far as, let's say I'm in the White House in this fantasy world, I'm going to be just as guided in my logic and reason for making a decision by giving something time and listening to experts and listening to my conscience as someone who, thinks that somehow prayer is going to guide him or her in making a decision. And you see, and I feel like you can test that over and over again. And so, and it's also a huge thing. You look at Donald Trump waving his Bible. You look at Hillary Clinton saying that the Bible is their favorite book. And it's, I can't even roll my eyes hard enough because it's so fake that these people are just doing it to appease like 100 million Zionists who believe in, Christianity, and to believe that it's the end of days and all these things. And it's like they're getting tricked out of their breakfast, lunch, and dinner, to trade it in for nothing. And it's, I hate it. I wish that these people just had a satisfied life, and they had enough to get by, and they didn't have to hold on to myths to make them happy and comfortable. I wish their children were fed, and I wish that they had a peace of mind that didn't rely on, believing in imaginary things. It really is something that bothers me, to my core, and that I just wish for people. I realize that it's a source of comfort and strength for people, but I was watching Stephen Colbert interview Joe Biden, and even Joe Biden was saying that his faith is like stumbling in the dark, and that, that he doubts more than he believes. And I think, then it's just a thing for you. It's not even a source of it. It's not even an anchor. It's just it's a thing that you're stuck with in your 70s. But I know that there are, 200 million Americans that are going to vote for him if he runs, and that's something, it's like a feather in his cap. And I love Joe Biden, like Joe Biden's a wonderful candidate, and all that. So it's a huge issue, because more than anything, like let's say let's spitball. I'm debating a Republican, when it comes up. And here's a Republican who wants to deport immigrant children, and he wants to kill the bad guys. And then he starts thumping his chest about religion. You know, it just doesn't add up, you know. And yet he's just, you know, pulling the wool over everyone's eyes, and it makes no sense because there's just no continuity with his message. So, anyway, suffice to say, you can tell that it's important to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question. Be a forecaster of sorts. Predict maybe one or two major problems facing our country in the future that very few people are talking about. What would you do to prepare America for these things?
All right. 2 or 3 things that are...
Yeah, 1 or 2, you know.
I would say GMOs are a huge problem. I would say, I'd say the bees dying are a huge problem. Colony collapse. You know, we've ruined food. The fact that you and I are 60% corn, the fact that all of our food, you know, is corn-fed, that's something a lot of people are talking about, but it's something that I don't know if we're acting too quickly on. You know, we're also, for the amount of talk since the 1970s we've had about global warming and climate change, we're not moving fast enough. You know, and the other thing is education, is that is just the fact that our students are falling behind and that we are not moving enough into the future. We are not succeeding to the lengths that we have in the past. So I feel like there's, you know, right now there are billionaires who are doubling down on their investment in education. There are scientists who are working on colony collapse, and there are lobbyists who are working on fighting against GMOs, and you see Frank Perdue on TV telling you that the chicken's not full of pesticides and whatnot. You know, I feel like the fact that Monsanto owns 90% of all the food and that they create 90% of all the food, that's a huge thing that, you know, in 30 years we're going to see cancer rates or we're going to see different diseases pop up. So even though these are things that we're aware of now, I feel like the full brunt is coming. I hope I'm wrong. I would love for the oceans to just swallow down all the pollution. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch and all the gyres that are full of the plastic contaminants. I mean, the oceans are now 1,000%, or they're 100% plastic to 1% plankton. You know, that's something that is not being, you know, well, you don't read about it in the news. I mean, maybe there's a secret government plan that's taking care of it, but there are inventions out there that take care of it. You know, these are all things I think about all the time, and there are geniuses out there inventing ways to take care of it. There are markets out there inventing ways to solve it with business. I hope these things take place, and you know, I do really see I am hopeful. I mean, it probably sounds skeptical and cynical, but I am hopeful of the right types of progress. If we don't bomb each other to smithereens, I'm really hopeful that we're going to have a really good future, you know, and so hopefully these things will be solved within the next 50 years.
All right, next question.
Yeah.
Everybody has things they're really good at and things they're not so good at. What are some of the things you're not so good at, and what would you do to compensate for those?
As a person or as a president?
As a president.
Well, let's see. I've made great strides at being a better morning person as I get older. So I think about the president in the morning. That's just a joke, but my weakness, I mean, my weaknesses as a person, translating to that being president, I don't know. I'm a really nice guy, to be honest. I even get along with people that I disagree with. I disagree with my best friends, who some of them have the complete opposite view of me, and I love them like brothers and sisters. So I would say my weakness is, let's say I'm president, maybe my weakness is I'm too optimistic. I'm too hopeful. Let's say I meet with, the leader of a country that I get along with. Maybe I'll be too trusting. I also sort of pride myself on being a good read of character, and even though I seem like I'm hopeful, I do keep some cards hidden. So, hopefully, when I'm elected president on that wonderful day, people will not see a goofy Jimmy Carter. Hopefully they will see, a very presidential Jeremy McKeen. They'll see someone they can trust, who is hopeful and idealistic, but also discerning and wise, and looking out for them. And I can sit down with foreign leaders, and I can be a diplomat, and I can work towards a better future without having the threat of warfare. So that might be it. When you deal with a psychopath, it doesn't matter. If you show weakness in your character, they may sniff that out. And usually the psychopaths, they rise to the top, and they're the ones that run a lot of these companies, and usually the ones that, in violent regimes, are the ones that rise to the top. I feel like I've been preparing. I've learned a lot about human nature. So maybe that's it. But other than that, I've been working hard on my weaknesses as the years have gone by. So I think I'm ready.
Are there any other issues you want to talk about? Anything you want to get off your chest that hasn't been covered so far?
Poverty is a big one. Education is a big one. For me, it is. For me, I don't get how. You go to a maternity ward, all right? You look at all these beautiful, amazing babies. They're just born. And you realize that half of them are not going to make it in terms of success. By third grade, if they don't have a certain education, they're going to end up in prison. Nobody looks at a maternity ward and says, this one's going to work for minimum wage. This one's going to drop out of high school. This one's going to go to jail for a minor drug offense. We have such affluence in this country. We have such great wealth. I see it all the time. And then I see such depths of poverty. And I can never reconcile it. I always think, like, if I could just chop off a little piece of everybody's luxury and spread it around in the right way so nobody's angry, and just take care of people. And just make sure that every baby gets a life that they're proud of, and every mother gets a life that she's proud of. That's my constant, aside from running for president, which I've already told you is something that I'm doing right now. But on a bigger picture level, I just don't get the world sometimes, how we can have so much. Everybody has so much. And not everybody has so much, but that some people have so much, and yet so many people have nothing. And it breaks my heart literally every day when I think about this, that I just would love, I'd love to fix some of that. And, you and I here in America, we are the 13th richest percent of the world. And most of the world lives on $2 a day or less. A lot of the world is illiterate. A lot of the world is not taken care of in terms of health care. You and I have such, even if you're poor in America, you have health care, you have dollar cheeseburgers down the street. You and I are easily taken care of. And I would love to see the world in 50 years. I'd love to see the lowest depths of poverty brought up, whether it's due to science, technology, the free market, whether it's due to government, whether it's due to sharing of resources. That's it for me. That's always it for me. To think that I have children. I love my children so much, more than anything. My children have everything they need. They've had it since day one, because I live where I live and because I do what I do. I wish that for every child in the world, for every child in America, for every child in every country that can't afford it, every child in Mexico, every child in Guatemala, every child in South America, every child in Syria. That's my wish. I know it won't come true, and that's the heartbreaking part of it. But that's the only thing that counts. And part of that in America is the education. If we lift the parents out of ignorance, we'll lift the children out of poverty and get them the education they need, get them training, get them jobs, transform schools. And even though it will be a slow process, this whole American thing has been an experiment. And so far we've done really well. We've done awfully in terms of slavery and in terms of how we treated the Chinese and the Native Americans and et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of right now, in terms of literacy and education and healthcare and whatnot, we're doing better than most of the world throughout history. So if those are the two things, if I was traveling across America, I would just beg people, let's get everybody out of poverty. Let's get everybody educated. Let's get everybody a trade, and let's see things turn around, and just take it from there.
All right, time for some closing remarks. In 2 minutes or less, tell us why we should vote for you.
All right, 2 minutes or less. Why you should vote for Jeremy McKeen, McKeen the Dream in 2016. I am the candidate who is clear-minded, logical, rational. I have everybody's interest in mind, and I'm not just a Democrat. I am someone who has every child, every woman, every man, every business owner in mind. I do not play the party line, and here's the thing is, you, the voter, you, the citizen, you are the dream. Your children are the dream. And to make that happen, we have to work together. And that's why I want to be president. I want to open up the aisle. I want to open up the town hall. I want to have people involved in democracy. I want to have people involved in their schooling, in their community. I want to see businesses flourish. I want to see communities flourish. I want America to not only be even greater than it already is, but I want America to be something greater than it's ever been. And I want to see a new America, and I want to see a better day. And it may just be a dream of mine, and it may just be a silly notion that I have. But we're almost there, and together we can achieve it, and together we can make that better day happen. So that's why you should vote McKeen the Dream in 2016.
All right. Thanks for participating in the interview. Thanks to my listeners for listening. Be sure to check back in the future for more candidate interviews. Have a good day, and remember to keep informed and keep involved. Thanks again.
Thanks so much.